Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wrestling Royalty. Welcome to Gimme a Hell Yeah, whichever channel you're watching this. Hello on this glorious Friday as we are well past WrestleMania and well on the way to Backlash if you're a WWE fan. If not, there's a big weekend of wrestling elsewhere outside of WWE this Saturday or Sunday, I believe. I'm going to have a guest on who will be able to enlighten you a little bit more about some of the other wrestling that's going on this weekend. But we are here today to talk about this new era we find ourselves in. It's something that's constantly said on commentary, and you hear it all the time. We've heard it a lot at WrestleMania. Welcome to the new era of WWE, which has been coined the Renaissance Era. And I must admit, I've had to spell Renaissance quite a few times. I'm hoping I'm going to keep spelling it right. But we are going to be talking tonight about what we can expect from this new era. This new exciting era that we find ourselves in post Vince McMahon, and this is Triple H or Paul Triple H Levesque era. He is firmly at the helm, and obviously we saw a lot of support thrown behind him, whether it was Paul Heyman at the Hall of Fame, whether it was his wife Stephanie McMahon on night 2. The man himself appeared a few times over the course of WrestleMania weekend as well, so that we are firmly in the Triple H era now. So tonight we're going to be talking about what to expect, what we think is going to happen, when exactly did this era start, and what are the kind of changes that we've already seen as well. So we're going to go into that, and that won't be just about the title changes, the superstars. It's also going to be about the production value, which is a big talking point these days as well. We're going to go into a little bit of everything, but of course, one of the things I love about these Friday evenings here in the UK is hearing from you beautiful people. So if you are watching along, please don't be scared. Get involved. Drop a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on this brave, exciting new era in WWE. I'm always keen to hear what our watchers and viewers, listeners, subscribers, whatever you want to kind of call yourselves, the Hullamaniacs, if you're over on that channel. I probably need to come up with some sort of nickname for people on Wrestling Royalty. You can be the court jesters if you want, or something along those lines. Speaking of court jesters, oh, look who's just turned up as well.
Cheeky sod.
I'm going
to get us both demonetized for that deliberately. But
I couldn't think of any other way to segue through. But here we have. He is no court jester. He is, of course,
I own it. No. I own it. I own it.
Mr. Sam Smith has joined us. How are you on? I don't know about you. It's been quite a balmy Friday afternoon up in Newcastle.
Well, it's been a bit of a balmy couple of days. I've just, what have I done today? I've been spent a couple of days playing through a certain game, ready for getting that where it needs to be content wise. Have watched a huge amount of wrestling this week. I need to kind of catch up a bit. I'm behind on AEW and I'm behind on NXT and a couple of other things. Quick plug though while we're here for what I've been doing. Our interview with Ash by Elegance is now live on WrestleSphere. So if you're watching the TNA pay-per-view this weekend, go have a little look at that. And Andy wrote an op-ed for WrestleSphere as well. That's live on the website as well. So we're spoiling you with WrestleSphere content today. So more coming as well.
And I've read. Well, obviously I wrote one, but I read the one for Sam, and it is great interview there. But you might want to explain for people who maybe aren't au fait with TNA who Ash by Elegance is, or might have been formerly known as anyway.
Yeah, Ash by Elegance is, of course, formerly known as Dana Brooke in WWE. And we do talk about her time in WWE a bit. And we talk about, like, if she was to now go in a Royal Rumble, which is becoming customary for TNA knockouts. You know, if she was the person to do it, would she go in as Ash by Elegance? Or would she go in as Dana Brooke? And she would want to do it as Ash by Elegance because of Mickie James was able to go into a WWE Royal Rumble with her hardcore country gimmick instead of her "Hey Mickie, you're so fine" gimmick. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, she was. I have to say, you know, here in front of everyone, she was one of the most endearing people, endearing wrestlers I've ever spoken to. She really took me by surprise with how. Not that I was expecting anything negative, of course not, but she was so sweet and so nice. And Andy will know, and anyone who watches Give Me a Haul Yeah will know that my dogs like to smash into this door and open it now and then and get told off by me. And they did that during that interview. And she laughed her head off at it. She thought it was really funny, and my dogs kicked off, and her dogs overheard my dogs, and her dogs started kicking off. So there you go. Once again, my dog Finley is more over than me, and apparently Dana Brooke.
Well, be sure to check that out. You can read it right now on WrestleSphere, and I'm sure over the course of the next few days you'll get to hit even more from Ash by Elegance. Easy for me to say. We've got a couple of people in already. We've got our trusty moderator Mark is in the house. Always happy to drop some knowledge, and we will kind of cover off some of the bits as we go along. But Mark says Mania 41 will likely be in May. There is rumours floating by, I think it was Fightful might have released it, that WWE have been discussing the possibility of moving WrestleMania to May, possibly due to having nicer weather a month later rather than April. Might open up some more venues in the sense of it was cold, if you hadn't heard, in Philadelphia. I'm sure that's the first time you're hearing of it. But yeah, if you think May, the weather definitely starts to turn a little bit better in the States on the eastern coast, anyway, East Coast. There are also rumors that maybe Gable, after his shocking heel turn on Monday night, which Sam did call, but at WrestleMania, but let's face it, Gable wasn't on Mania, so it was pretty much the next opportunity they had. So yeah, Chad Gable now villainous, doing a German suplex on Sami Zayn while he was hugging his wife. Can't be doing that. But yeah, there is rumors that Chad Gable could be aligning himself with a heelish turn for well, I've forgotten the names. The
Diamond Mine.
Creed Brothers. That's the one I was going for. Yeah, Diamond Mine. They used to be called Creed Brothers, who have been getting over. I thought they've had some fantastic matches. The triple threat match.
So good. But I love the idea of, because I think it works beautifully. Like, he's kind of the because he's got that mastermind mentality, and I've wanted to see this heel version of Chad Gable for years. Because when he's been a heel, he's been a silly heel. Oh, thank you, and all of that, and that's okay. But I want to see him be a killer, and him with these guys, all these collegiate wrestlers, like the Creed brothers, them together is a match made in heaven. I can't wait. I hope this is true. This rumor. I hope it's true.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes sense when you think their backgrounds and the way they're presented, even the way that they dress. Like, it's all quite similar, and it feels like it's been on the cards a little while. Really cool spot for Gable to find himself in, that he closed out Raw as a villainous heel. We'll get into a couple of bits of pieces that happen on Raw as well, but tonight we are going to be talking more generally about this new era that we find ourselves in. But I just want to say hello to Eva, who says good evening, who is watching along on Facebook by the looks of it as well. Always great to have people in from whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere, as long as you're watching us. Feel free to drop as many comments as you like, and I hope you're having a wonderful Friday as well. So I'll add this in. We'll get into everything basically about what we're hoping to cover. Is basically just like, what is this new era? What are we expecting? What are the changes that we've already seen? And spoiler alert, there's a lot of changes that's already happened. We're going to start, though, with potentially the moment where you could pinpoint this new era beginning. Or is it? This is probably the first thing we should cover. Is this a new thing, Sam, that we saw at WrestleMania? Was that the start of the era? Or had it already begun a little bit further back? What's your thoughts? Is there an official start point to this Renaissance era?
Well, it's, for starters, let's pee on everyone's chips a little bit. This is marketing, but it's good marketing, and it's a nice way of WWE to say, right, we've had a bit of a rough year with things about our former boss and a few other things, but we've also had the era of Roman Reigns, which has come to an end. But the whole point of having so what's happened here is Luke Skywalker has overthrown the Emperor, basically. Jey Uso could be Darth Vader in some respects here, because he's he saw the light and then did the right thing. So you've got all these elements coming in, but the thing is, yes, this is a new era, but it was always going to be a new era when Cody took the belt, which I think he was always going to at this Mania, apart from that little hiccup they had with The Rock maybe replacing him, and thank God they fixed that. But even if it weren't for all the stuff with Vince and Triple H, and let's not forget, a couple of days after Mania last year, we got the news that TKO were going to be the guys, taking on WWE. So I think this is the culmination of three separate changes. That's no Vince, Cody taking over from Roman, and Triple H being Uncle Paul, as he's been for a while now to some of us, fully embracing that role. So it makes sense for WrestleMania to be the place where they officially roll this out. And I'm happy with that being a start date, yes, but the elements of it did begin sooner. Like, do you remember when we got that tweet from Vince McMahon saying, I'm retiring? Like we drank champagne in our house that evening when that happened. I'm not joking. But obviously, he then kind of forced his way back in after last year's WrestleMania, and there was a few other things. But yes, this is marketing, but it's the stars have aligned, and I'm here for it, and I'm happy to consider WrestleMania to be the start of that. But I think if Cody had lost, it wouldn't have had the same amount of gravitas as it has now. But the minute they said at these press conferences before Mania, oh, this is the Triple H era, I was like, this is the thing they're going to market. Cody's winning. The minute they started saying it.
And he wasn't the only one. Obviously, we saw a lot of titles change hands, and we're even going to see another one, which again we'll talk about in a little bit. Another title change is going to happen on Monday. Kind of already has. But the interesting thing is when you go and you speak to people about, say, the Attitude Era, different people have different ideas of exactly when that started and when it ended. There's like some people believe it was as far back as, I don't know, like the Stone Cold delivering his 316 speech and that kind of kicked it off, or maybe it was his match against Bret Hart, or maybe it comes a little bit later on. There's kind of that, you could argue in a few different places. Then there's that, where did that finish and where did the Ruthless Aggression Era start? Was there an in-between part? And again, even here, like there's an argument to say that Triple H has had the creative side of things for a little while. And yes, he has had people in his ear, and now he seems to be free of that. But there's also this shift. Again, we'll speak about it a little bit more length about the production side of things, which is very much signaling that we're in a completely different era as to what we've seen before. But for me, history will probably show this as the start of what they're now referring to as the Renaissance Era. And as you say, a lot of it is a way of marketing it. It's a way of catching people into going like, yeah, you don't need to worry about that guy who used to be here. This is something completely new. Let's look over here and it's shiny, and we're going to do things a little bit differently. But it feels different. It feels like this is true. Like, as you say, we've had false dawns. I wrote about it in the article that's now live on WrestleSphere. We were promised, and it hasn't, and previously hasn't gone well. This doesn't feel the same. We are, though, seeing little bits and pieces change week on week. Now, this picture in particular was one that I wanted to put up because it kind of shows this very different approach to the Titantron or the entrance or whatever you kind of want to call it, which is very much stripped down. It's not this very small one that they brought in because they wanted to fill the seats behind it, but it is, I don't know, like it's not as grand as it used to be. What are your thoughts on this more kind of squat version of the entrance ramp? And there isn't even a ramp, I guess. It's a flat entrance now.
Well, I just presumed at the time it was because of the venue they were in. That's what I thought. But then I realised they were in that same venue for a few days before as well for NXT and for. Am I thinking? Oh, was that the Raw before? The Raw after?
So that one was they were in the Wells Fargo for SmackDown, NXT, and Raw. But this week we were in Montreal, which is obviously like a completely different arena.
Of course, in a different country.
I don't believe anyone was sat behind. I think this was just a case of this is what it looked like. I could be wrong, and maybe someone like Mark can let me know. But this seems to be a new thing that they've gone with because we've seen this a couple of times. And
I don't know if it paid a huge amount of attention. I remember them not having a Tron, and they went, "Oh, we're going to just put the screens up everywhere." I don't know if that was a week before, but I remember thinking, "Ooh, well, that's." I wasn't feeling that, but for the most part, since they got rid of the guy, what's his bloody name? The guy who was in charge of production, and they got the new guy in.
Kevin Dunn.
Since they got rid of Done Was Done, and they got rid of they got the new guy in. I think the new guy's been a breath of fresh air. He brings a certain character
I've
to
got
it.
slides for him. His name is Lee Fitton, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail about Lee Fitton and where he's come from and how he's rose to prominence, I guess. But yeah, this one I just thought was very interesting. I'd love to know people's comments as well. Are you happy with a sort of slightly less grandeur about the entranceway? Because I guess wrestling is always going to be, it's about the sort of the pomp, the circumstance, the bombasticness of it all, and you kind of want it to be grand. But this era very much feels like it's got to be a bit more real, a little bit more gritty, and like a bit more down to earth. Now this does feel it by like scaling down the Tron into almost like a half-size Tron, I guess, from what we've seen in the past. But there's a lot of love for the Titantrons of old, and especially like SmackDown with the fist, things like that. But yeah, it seems like a new one. I also want to give a shout out to this match, because I thought on Raw, if people have seen it, this triple threat tag team match was absolutely fantastic. One that I've already made a note of to refer back to at any end of year awards to see if it stands up. But we had DIY versus New Day versus the Creeds, and that was for a shot. I think it's next week, but I'm surprised they're not holding it back for Backlash in a couple of weeks at the Tag Team Championships. But yeah, speaking of the Tag Team Championships, another new thing.
Turn off this heater, mate. Sorry, I'm just going to turn
no
off
worries.
this heater.
Another thing happened on Monday night, which was we were the first time seeing these World Tag Team Championships. Now this is a rebrand and a redesign away from those giant bronze penny things that we were getting, where it was a blue set and a red set. And now that we've officially split them at WrestleMania, these are the Raw side of things, where, as I say, you can see it on the title, the World Tag Team Championships, which are currently held by Awesome Truth, which feels absolutely ridiculous to say in 2024. Hopefully it's not for too long, as there's a lot of decent tag teams out there, which presumably is the reason why they've split the titles. Sam, what's your thoughts on the design first of all, and where will those penny ones fit in the sense of like belts of when we look back at it in a few years' time?
Well, I've never really been a fan of the current the other design with like the Spartan helmets, like the red and the blue. I've never really been a fan of any of that. So I much prefer belts being gold, and I kind of like how they're like little miniature versions of the new big gold belt, the new heavyweight championship. Yeah. So, but I've got a concern, and my concern is what happens tonight on SmackDown, because I'm really worried that they're going to do what they've done with the women's championships, and they've just made it a bit of a confusing mess where they've essentially got the same name, drop a word. And no one quite knows if there's a hierarchy between them or not. They've implied it and then they've unimplied it. So I'm a little bit. I think the only thing they could because they've called them this. If these are the World Tag Team Championships, I suspect strongly that tonight on SmackDown they'll have the WWE Tag Team Championships, and then we're in a situation where, well, which one's which? And I couldn't even tell you which of the women's belts are which. I know Rhea's got the big gold belt version, but I don't know what either of them are called.
The world title. So that's the women's world championship.
But I see what they're doing. They're kind of following on from the idea of the heavyweight championship and then the WWE championship, with the WWE championship being the one we've had for a long time, but the big gold belt being a throwback to the other big gold belt, which now both of them are technically open weight. So they're using that word heavyweight with a pinch of salt. But like I get that for the two world championships. I that makes sense there, but it doesn't so much make sense in the women's division, and it doesn't so much make sense in the tag division. So I'm a little bit about this. However, in terms of a design point of view, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I do wish I don't know why. I feel like it didn't need as much red on it. I know it's for Raw, but presumably one of the other reasons why they've named them what they have is because eventually they could get swapped around or whatever could happen. Like, as in whoever has these titles could get drafted across to SmackDown, and then it kind of gets a little bit diluted when you have to do that stupid thing where you pass the belts across, or like people then start moaning on or whatever. But here, like, it feels like, all right, will then have to have a blue version if they ever find their way across the SmackDown for some reason.
Yeah, we'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, but yeah, it'd be interesting. I do feel like they've got a bit of an issue with the naming of, as you say, because even like the main belt, which you would probably say is the Universal, they've been referring to it as different things. Because I think Cody's been called the WWE Universal Champion. He's then been called the.
Well, they clarified it today, apparently.
Undisputed Universal Champion, etc. So,
well,
yeah,
apparently now, would you believe Cody was on Good Morning Britain this morning in
he was,
ITV in the UK? I've just watched it upstairs in bed, but yes, it was. He's such an endearing guy. But now they had the wrong name on the banner beneath, and Cody corrected them to. And it came down the wire today as well from WWE officially, which is so the belt. Cody's current belt should now be referred. They've basically dropped Universal, which is good. It's now both the belts are officially unified, because I know there was some confusion that if they were or not. I've always assumed that they were because of Roman got a new belt.
Yeah.
But other people were less convinced. But it is now officially the undisputed WWE Championship again.
Oh, so they've dropped Universal rather than drop Undisputed. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's officially the name of Cody's belt. Now that's interesting. So basically, the Universal Championship is dead, and presumably now its heritage has been absorbed by the longer, grander belt, which is the WWE Championship. However, for a long, long time, they did treat the Universal title as it was more important than the WWE Championship, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But I've got a question. Does that make Goldberg, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, and a couple of other people, does that make them honorary WWE champions now? Who've held the Universal, but maybe not held the WWE? So. Yeah, good. Because I want to be Finn Balor to be able to say I'm a former WWE champion because he's held the Universal, but he's never held the big one. So it created an interesting situation there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like it means Bray Wyatt is a WWE champion as well, because he obviously held the Universal, but
he held both. He's held both at different times, didn't he? Bray, he held the WWE Championship heading into
when he went against Randy Orton.
Yeah. But not for very long.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say about that side of things, I do think they need a bit of clarification, because the word undisputed normally means you have there's nothing else. Like, you are undisputed. It is the only thing that exists. You can't dispute it. That's literally what it means. But
I've got the answer.
Having this heavyweight, the World Heavyweight Championship as well, seems to muddy that slightly, and almost as people have levied at it, is make it a secondary belt. But
well, it's a reference. I think it's referencing two things. I think the undisputed word is more of a, now this is the Universal and the former WWE Championship together. So that's the undisputed aspect of it. And I see what you did there. It's very nice. We're on AEW now, boys. But there is also the idea that if we go back in time to the buyout of WCW, the big gold belt was originally the WCW Championship, which was later referred to as just the World Championship, and then later the World Heavyweight Championship. And we have, for the longest time, had the WWE Championship, and then we had the big gold belt, which was the World Heavyweight Championship. Now we're kind of in that era again with a new version of that belt. So to me, the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship, and I know people have corrected me when I call it the big gold belt, but I'm not going to stop calling it that, because it is a big gold belt. And it's taking its inspiration from the previous big gold belt, which was always a step beneath the WWE Championship, and likely still is. Because look, Damian Priest is great. I love Damian Priest.
Yeah.
And but right now, Cody is the guy in WWE. It ain't Priest. And if McIntyre had kept hold of it, it ain't going to be McIntyre. And even if Seth had kept hold of it, it isn't Seth. Seth was a strong number two, perhaps. That sounds awful. But the point is, the one Cody's, and he even clarified it on TV this morning, this is the big one. So that undisputed, whether we like it or not, the heavyweight championship is just the rung beneath.
Well, this is the one that he wanted when he said
Yeah.
about being handed it, and it's the one that his dad never had, and things like that. So, like, for Cody, great. I will ask you before we move on, though. Out of 10, what are you rating these titles?
These belts. Well, they're not. They don't. Again, I'm worried about what's like the branding of them. But in terms of designs, I've seen better, but I've seen worse. So I don't know. 8, 7.5.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to hate on them, but
yeah,
they're a step up.
They are nice that they're uniformed. I guess with like they're very much fit in with the rest of the Raw belts. Yeah, interesting one. I'm still on the fence because I always feel like when you see them under the lights like this, I don't think it does them fully justice. When I've seen the renders of them, on WWE.com, I think they look a little bit better personally. And even when they're around someone's waist or on their shoulder, they also look slightly better anyway. And in isolation, it's difficult. I will say they're not a patch, and nothing else has come on a patch on the NXT UK Tag Team Championships, which quite frankly are absolutely beautiful. And you can actually buy them. They're on sale at the moment on Euroshop. So if you want a lovely looking belt, then maybe consider that one. But yeah,
I love Euroshop. I love it so much.
We did mention before about a certain Mr. Lee Fitting, who is the gentleman who's taken over from Kevin Dunn. Now, Kevin Dunn was actually, would you believe it, was in charge of production for 30 years in WWE, which is possibly why things feel so different from January onwards. Lee Fitting came across from ESPN, and he'd been there for 25 years, I think is the stat that I read. So he's obviously learned a lot on the likes of Monday Night Football and the NFL, and very much kind of bigger mainstream sports in America. So he's been learning his trade there, has come in as an outsider and brought in a lot of different camera shots and techniques and little tweaks to the production. I think his official title is he's in charge of media and production, which is quite a big overarching thing. But certainly his name was bandied around a lot over WrestleMania weekends. I have a quote on the next one, but I wanted to get your thoughts because I'm sure by now you've seen it, Sam. And let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. This entrance by Sami Zayn has got to go down as one of the absolute all-time entrances. For those who didn't get to see it, what happened was at the end of Jey Uso versus Finn Balor, Jey Uso did what actually was a very clever thing to do in sort of real-time terms. He was going to get jumped by the rest of Judgment Day. So instead of fighting and getting beaten down, he just left and went through the crowd because they wouldn't follow him. In fact, he kind of fought a few of them off, ran up the stairs. The camera followed him through the concourse and out to the front door.
When he also said deuces, ooses, which is what he said when he left the bloodline as well.
That's right,
so there's a little callback to that, which is funny.
We also saw a quite funny thing of a fan trying to get a selfie, walking dead in front of Jey Uso's path, and then Jey Uso just pushed him, which I thought was quite funny. But yeah, he ended up outside, and Sami Zayn was stood outside looking up at the building. And obviously, we know Jey Uso and Sami Zayn have a very interesting history together. Obviously, they're on good terms at the moment, and Sami then went into a bit of a monologue about how he entered this building as a fan way back when it was his first big wrestling show he went to, and he wanted to enter the way he did all those years ago. The camera then followed him the other way and back into the arena, through the concourse, and then down into the arena via this entrance here that you see. The crowd went absolutely ballistic for this, as did social media. This was a sort of camera angle or a shot that we maybe saw a couple of times back in the Attitude Era. They weren't afraid to go into the concourse, but I think that long panning shot that they had, where it was one continuous shot, was something completely different. What did you make of it? What were your thoughts on this particular moment?
It was interesting. I think there were certain times where he felt like a little bit of a rabbit. He looked like a little bit of a rabbit in a headlights, but that's his personality. So it was all right. And I think he made a mess of the bins. I was like, oh, Sammy, someone's got to clean that up. But yeah, when I first saw it, when he was just wistfully staring up at the building, I thought, oh, they forgot. He just happens to be there, does he? Okay. Jey just happens to decide to leave, and there's his best friend stood looking up. They had a nice, the bromance between Jey and Sammy It was something I called back when when everything went horribly wrong and the Bloodline kicked Sammy out. I remember thinking these two need to ride again, otherwise there's no justice in the world. And they do, and it's nice that they do their own thing, but at the same time, they haven't forgotten that story of that important relationship between the two of them. But yeah, generally speaking, it was they also did it for the Montreal crowd as well. So it was a nice thing for them. This is the place where Sammy used to come and watch wrestling. So I completely understand why they did it. It was a nice moment. And what I like about it as well is even though Cody was on this show, and I think what's he called? Damian Priest was on the show as well. Sami Zayn as the IC champion felt like a big deal. Like Sammy doesn't feel like a mid-card champion. He feels like a big deal. Now it's only a matter of time before he's met his first challenge in Gable, which I can't wait for. But
Yeah.
I know we've literally just seen them wrestle, and I already can't wait to see it happen again. But yeah, this was great. Of course it was. So aspects of it weren't for me, but I sometimes think that's a presentation thing with Sammy, but nobody else is like him. So I'm here with it. I'm here for it. I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly felt, as you mentioned about the Montreal crowd, it was good timing for Sammy because he got a very strange reaction to winning the IC belt. I think a lot of people didn't like the fact it was maybe him because he's a multiple-time IC holder, and it was very much a case of, even being in there was a lot of people going, really? Sammy's the guy who's going to beat Gunther. Like, it wasn't even the fact of like beating Gunther at WrestleMania. It was the fact that he was the guy who stopped this longest ever IC run happening and brought Gunther down. And it was a good match. I had fun with it. I thought it was a great match, but very much the reaction inside the link was a bit of confusion that Sammy was the guy. I think this show was important. It came at a great time to show that Sami Zayn is actually very much a fan favorite. And yes, it was in his hometown, but like if you're not fully aware and you just see people like, oh, okay, I should be rooting for Sammy. He's a good guy. Everyone else here seems to be. So, good moment for him, and it got him a lot of sympathy at the end as well, which again, very important to the storyline.
And one of the last times they were there, let's not forget, he had that loss. I don't know if it's the same venue, but they had that loss against Roman Reigns, where the crowd were like really behind him. A friend of mine, actually, and a colleague of mine was in the building at the time. He was on business and he thought, you know what, I'm going to go and see a WWE show because I'm in town. And what a show did he go to see?
Yeah.
And he said like the atmosphere in there was electric, particularly when Sammy came out. So giving them this moment and then the betrayal just made it even stronger. But one thing I'll say about the story is because I never understood that point of view. Like, because to me, and that you and I have had this conversation weeks and weeks ago as well, I always interpreted this story as, look, Sammy is the one. Sammy is the one who has got Gunther's number, but he needed Chad just to give him another ingredient. But the difference is where Chad has that ingredient, he doesn't have the rest of the recipe. He just has that ingredient. And in giving that to Sammy, Sammy's got the formula. So that was always the way I interpreted it. And I'm not being funny. Like Chad Gable being made out to be this family man and everything, like they telegraphed this heel turn months ago. Like, yeah, because the story here wasn't about Chad being the guy. It was about Sammy being the guy and Chad losing his mind over that and the frustration he feels as an athlete and him giving up and going to the dark side. I feel like they've layered this story well, but I don't know if there's something WWE has done wrong in maybe not making that clear. But then at the same time, Chad's like, to me, I was like, wait for it. But for a lot of people, this was a shocking moment where for me, I thought it was coming at Mania. And the minute it didn't happen at Mania, I thought, right, so what happens now is he gives Gable the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then Gable loses his mind when he loses. Because Gable was under the impression that because I gave you the special sauce to beat Gunther and I've been training you, I know all of the gaps in your armor, but he didn't. And that is a great... It's like Marvel Comics always have villains who are sympathetic. Chad Gable is a sympathetic villain, and they're the best kind of villains because it's you struggle with your emotions for them. And WWE recently has been doing a better job with its heels. Like Liv Morgan is another example. We've just seen Liv Morgan turn heel, and she said on TV the other day, "Why are you booing me? This bloody bitch did it to me, and I just got my own back." Now, we know as fans, Liv went about this the wrong way. Liv should have done that in the ring, not as a backstage attack. But from an ethics point of view, Liv is saying, "Hang on a minute, I'm the good guy in this story, not Rhea bloody Ripley. You've all got short memories." And they've done it with McIntyre, they've done it with AJ Styles. This new sympathetic, justified heel thing seems to be. Now, you can't do that with every heel, but right now, I think it makes better stories. Yeah, they can't do it every time, but for everybody they've done it for so far, it's just been storytelling magic. Like CM Punk seemed like a bit of a monster with what he did to McIntyre. It was like he was pushing him. Like, I'm now sympathetic with McIntyre again because of what Punk did to him the other day. So, like, don't get me wrong, Punk is the babyface in this story, and Drew deserves it for being such a douche for a few months. But they're making me feel something for McIntyre like they did for Chad, and it's just so much better than it's ever been because of that. Sorry, I've been monologuing. Over to you.
No, I get it, and like I'm not sure Chad neatly fits into that, that kind of category, but I get what you mean, because I think WWE's they have to realize sometimes that fans will pick their favorites and there won't be the person that they're expecting. I think Chad was very much one of those people, and people were maybe expecting him to be involved in WrestleMania somehow. Something felt a little bit off when he wasn't even involved in the Andre the Giant memorial thing the night before WrestleMania, which suggested there was something bigger in the pipeline coming out of that as well. So
that's what they wanted you to think, though. That's why they did it. That's what's frustrating in a way, because Chad did get screwed out of a Mania moment. Like, he really did. We're all right about that. But that, in my opinion, adds to the tragedy. Chad has got every right to be annoyed. But the fact of the matter is, in this story, he was not good enough, and he thought he was. So it's his delusions and his arrogance that make him a heel now, and the fact that he's chosen to go about it the wrong way. Because
it gives you that conflict as well, though, as a fan. Is like, actually, like, yeah, I kind of want him to win in some respects, but you can't be German suplexing someone like when they're hugging their wife. It just feels like that's a very, very villainous thing to do. So, there's shades of it as well. But the McIntyre and CM Punk stuff, a completely different conversation, but a very great one to have, because quite frankly, like, everyone in the stadium was like, "Drew, you got to get yourself out." And I think I shared that video with you where there's the woman screaming, like, "You did this to yourself. Like, just leave. Just take the belt and leave."
Yeah.
Like, fantastic. It was true. Like, everyone in the stadium was like, Damian Priest is blatantly waiting backstage. So, like, stop getting to CM Punk's face. And he just would not learn. He knew what was going to happen, and he did it anyway. So, I heard rumors today that Drew's deal is imminently about to be signed because he is feeling the creativity's back again. So I think he's happy with the direction. And quite frankly, what's he got? Potential match with Damian Priest, potential match with CM Punk. After that,
Rollins again.
Got, like, Rollins again. So he's got lots of stuff that lined up, and he could even take a little bit of time out if he wanted to as well, I guess. So plenty of moving there. But as we were discussing this in particular, this shot was the master behind it was seemingly Mr. Lee Fitting. And I've got a quote here from Triple H where he says, I'll read it out just because obviously some people might not be bothered to read it. Lee Fitting, from a production standpoint, from what we're doing, from the look, the feel, all of it, you see changes happening every week on TV, and there's going to be more of them. But you see that, and I see people excited by them, and I'm loving this, just loving the changes that are made. I'm telling you, there's so much more to come. There's a lot more coming. But when I tell you Lee Fitting, I love working with him. He has a passion for this, just like we do. Might be new here, but he's all in. He's the kind of guy that I want to go to work for. I want to do stuff to make his job easier. I want to collaborate with him, and I want to make things better with him. So I can't say enough good stuff about him. A lot of the change that you see, a lot of the success that you're seeing comes from Lee Fitting. Now, that is from the mouth of Triple H, and I believe this quote was actually from the press conference on night 2 of WrestleMania. So what a stage to kind of throw some accolades at this guy who, as a lot of people have mentioned, is an outsider. He came in January and he had these kind of fresh ideas. And a lot of the time, the wrestling industry can be a little bit reluctant to change. And I think he had a slightly open goal because people were tired of some of the things that Kevin Dunn was doing, the copious amounts of nauseating camera cuts over a short kind of period of time. No one will ever forget seeing the video of the cameraman kind of panning up and down when there was chair shots going on. And yes, it's to make you understand the impact behind it and what it's supposed to feel like, but it doesn't hit quite right. And like, it's almost kind of taking the piss out of fans to a degree as well when you have to kind of do that sort of stuff. But instead, they've been replaced with these nice shots of meandering out of the concourses and then seeing the kind of the scope of the arena and how like many people are in the building, or the ones where you see it. Even AEW has started changing the way that they have their production, and I saw the exact same kind of camera shot. Now, that's not throwing shade at AEW. God, if AEW sees something that works, why wouldn't you go down that route? And the same vice versa. If AEW does something very well, then WWE would be stupid not to copy to a degree. And anyone throwing shade, as Sam will say, it's ridiculous. At the end of the day, these guys are presenting very similar things. You just need to let them get the best out of it. And if someone's found a good formula, so be it. Share it around. It's going to happen.
And also, let me tell you on the tribalism point. Sorry, Andy.
No.
I was going to say on the tribalism point, and I know this because wrestlers have told it me. The WWE guys and the AEW guys, a lot of them are friends. Some of them are family members. When they go out for drinks with each other, they laugh at you. to the people who are going, no, I just watched this and I fight with the people online. You're being laughed at by the wrestlers because they don't even do that. Most of them are friends and colleagues. It's like us. We might, if we go to a show, we might be sat with What Culture or Cultaholic or so many others. We don't throw shade at them because we might have a drink with them. We might have a chat. You know what I mean? Yes, like they're our competition in some form, but this is an industry where we all kind of move around and things like that. So it's ridiculous. But anyway, I've said enough about tribalism for a lifetime.
Yeah, and as you say, like we're not going to throw shade at anyone who's in our area. It's hard enough as it is anyway, without anyone else's voice being negative. But anyway, a lot of love for Mr. Lee Fitting, and I'm sure that will continue by the sounds of it. It's new, exciting things to come. I'm very excited to see new little tweaks to the way that WWE is presented. Did you see, before we move on to this, I don't know, I know you said you're a little bit behind, on NXT, we've started getting very similar ones. They had a drone shot a couple of weeks ago where it started outside and it followed the queue of fans coming in, and then it kind of like diverted a little bit, and then you saw a couple of the tag teams talking outside and walking towards the building, and you saw them, and then the commentators, Vic Joseph, was able to kind of explain, oh, they're going to be seeing this tonight, or they're going to be doing this tonight, and oh, there's such and such who's going to be, and it felt like a natural way to kind of showcase, which I liked. And they've got spring breaking coming up, and there's one shot which I thought looked really cool, and then in retrospect I was like, I'm not sure. I've forgotten his name. There's a young lad, and I think his whole thing is he's very bouncy. He flies around. He had a match against Ilya Dragunov this week.
Not Yvonne Evans. Yvonne Evans,
yes.
Not him. Was it him? Yeah, he's brilliant. Absolutely. What
he prodigy. Had a shot a couple of weeks. He jumped out the ring over the top rope, and they showed a camera angle where the person was underneath him, so you just saw him fly across the screen.
Saw that.
And then I was like, I like it, but at the same time, why was the cameraman just lying there on the off chance he's going to get that shot? It kind of feels like, maybe a bit too set up. So I like it, but I don't like it. So they're going to hit and miss on these things, is what I'm saying.
I'm happy to suspend my disbelief on something that looks that cool. Because the first time I saw them do that, did you watch Level Up at all?
Yes.
Because I think they first did that on a Level Up episode, and it blew me away a little bit. I was like, oh, and then I think they've kind of made that his thing. You know how Joaquin Wilde's thing is now getting fired by the ropes.
Yeah.
I think they've made that Yvonne Evans move. That's just going to be the thing he does. And look, if that kid goes on to have a really successful career, we might end up seeing that shot in WrestleMania one day. So I hope so. I think it's pretty cool. But do you know, like, It's a bit like the Sea Monster thing. Not Lee Evans, he's a bloody comedian. Keith Lee used to do. Keith Lee used to do this spot, and he's done it in AEW, he's done it in NXT, and he's done it
where
in
he just
WWE.
pops up behind them.
Yeah, but his head just slowly rises like a sea monster. And I call it the Sea Monster spot. I think I stole that from Brian Alvarez. But that is ridiculous. But it worked and it was funny. And every time it happened, the crowd would see it on the screen and they'd start the UF up chant, UF'd up.
So it's what you see on like a horror film, isn't it? Where you see like Jason like kind of pop up in the background, or Mike Myers sort of thing. So we've got Clarky One in the house. So it's the Renaissance era. I like the sound. Like that sounds cool, man.
Good word.
It is cool. Until you then have to keep writing it and then realize I'm not sure if I spelled it right, even though I've written it 6 or 7 times. It's damn French word, isn't it, to try and spell?
It's also a long word with lots of S's, I's, and A's. So it's like, oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah. But we are, as I said at the top of the show, we're going to get another new champion. And this is someone who actually was one of only 2, I believe, champions that defended their title successfully at WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley, as Sam mentioned before, was taken out by Liv Morgan. A lot of people talking as to why she's having to give it up when we didn't see Roman for months at a time and things like that. You've got to suspend your disbelief sometimes, and there must be a reason why this time they are compared to that time. They obviously had plans for Roman, that they knew what they wanted to do here. Here, it might be a legitimate injury where they're not sure how long it's going to be. It might be like moving parts. Does she have to have surgery? Such and such things. And quite frankly, I don't think it's the worst thing for Rhea Ripley to have lost the title this way, because it was getting to the point where who's going to take it off of her? And this gives her a nice little wrinkle when she comes back as to, I never lost the title. I'm going to destroy whoever it is. And she has to chase again. That's not a bad thing.
It's a happy. I felt really guilty about this all week because it's like I thought to myself, and I was fantasy booking it. I was like, right, well, this creates sympathy for her. She hasn't lost it in the ring. She's lost it due to injury and an attack in kayfabe. So she's still got her status as the champion. She never properly lost it. She has to relinquish it. This gives somebody else the opportunity to hold it, to get elevated, to fight over it, while she can rush to a comeback. And this just makes her a bigger baby face. It also plays into the story of the fractures between Judgment Day. You know, Balor doesn't have a belt now. There's something's got to play out there. They've got to be careful they don't mimic the bloodline too much, but this creates so many storyline opportunities. I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, because I wouldn't ever wish injury on anyone, like, you know, certainly not Rhea Ripley, but I actually do think this could turn out to, I don't want to say be a positive, but from a storyline point of view, there's a lot they could do with it. They can make lemonade from these lemons, is what I'm saying. There's lots of lemonade they can make from these lemons. I actually, obviously, and I think you're right. I think with this injury, this isn't just like, we can't really compare it to the Roman Reigns thing, because we don't know what this is yet. We don't know how long it's going to be. So they've got to just play it by ear a little bit. And in the meantime, the show must go on, and Rhea knows that. And I think she's smart enough to know as well, hang on a minute, from a booking point of view, this is brilliant. Because, like, if anyone doesn't think they're putting this back on her, like, this is kind of like a Josh Alexander situation in TNA. Josh had the belt. He was kicking ass. One of the most impactful champions. You see what I did there? Impactful champions we ever had. Then he has to lose it due to injury. But his chase is now, he's their Cody Rhodes. So when he actually eventually does get that belt back, which I think will be at Bound for Glory this year, it'll be a huge moment after the rebrand. And it'll mean more than it ever meant if you just held it this whole time. So this can be a happy accident, and I think it will be for Rhea.
Yeah, and I think it is an unfortunate opportunity, but one nevertheless, that there's a lot of women who now need to step forward, and they need to prove that they can be as successful and popular as Rhea has been as champion. And it's a big job, but someone's got to be ready to go for it, whether that's someone like Liv Morgan, whether it would be someone else like Nia Jax, or there's a whole host of people. So we await with bated breath to see how they're going to crown a new champion, and whether it will be. I I don't know why they're doing it now when they've got a pay-per-view coming up in a couple of weeks, but maybe they'll stretch it out a little bit further to Backlash, and that'll be where we go with it.
Yeah, I think it's storytelling reasons.
If you want to find out, there's someone you can watch it along with each Monday, which is Mr. Dan Hargreaves on Give Me a Hell Yeah. So make sure you are subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and Dan is the man for Monday Night Raw. We will be covering a little bit about SmackDown before we head off, because we have the man for SmackDown on with us right now. But yeah, if you want to find out along with another host of Give Me a Hell Yeah, tune in on Monday night with Dan, and you'll find out how they're going to crown a new champion.
Quick one. Another example is CM Punk. Like yes, we were going to get the Rollins Punk match, but obviously it sucks for Punk to come back in and then quickly get that injury straight away. But look what it's given us. Look at it. Look at the whole Rollins story, the McIntyre thing. All of that was a gift. And now there's so much goddamn heat between McIntyre and Punk. Like that is, let's be honest, that's going to be the story we can all look forward to. That has now got so much more heat behind it than it ever would have had if they just done it at Mania, in my view.
I don't know how long Punk's got left till he's obviously like ready to go in the ring, but certainly from a selfish point of view, I'd love that to happen in a couple of months' time when they're across in the UK.
Oh yeah.
That would be an awesome one. But I have a feeling we might get Drew versus Damian Priest.
I think you're right.
You know, maybe Jey Uso, but I don't think they're moving the title that quickly off of Damian.
He'll be a babyface though, even if it's one night only. He'll like, do you know how like Rhea was in Australia? Like Drew in Glasgow, the guy's kind of air shit.
I want to see Drew in his home city against CM Punk, because CM Punk is always the guy that people will chant for, but seeing him against Drew McIntyre on his own turf, man, that makes like an extra level of intrigue.
I think you could put him up against Cody Rhodes, and I think they're chanting for Drew in that building. Like, seriously, but obviously they're not going to do that because that would be the most ridiculous thing ever. But I think he's the babyface there. Even like that's why I love the Damian Priest thing, because even if it's heel versus heel, the bigger heel is the heel.
Night. Yeah.
It's like Nia Jax, Rhea Ripley all over again. So
yeah. But I mean, things can change, because this is the last thing we're going to talk about before we head off. The WWE draft is up and coming next Friday, a week today. It starts April 26th, and it will continue into Monday Night Raw. So this is why it's really important that you do click that subscribe button for Give Me a Hell Yeah and here, because we've got some plans. You might remember last year when the draft was on, we had a draft where it was Sam and Dom went head to head with the boys from Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling Channel. I'm hoping that we can do the same again. I'm going to get in touch with Scott and see if we can line that up, because it was great fun. I'd be keen to do it again and see where we are.
Diva Dom came out, didn't he? Diva Dom
came out at full force against you as well.
Yeah. I was his teammate as well.
So yeah, if we can, we'll certainly be trying to put that together, and for the first time it'll also feature on Give Me a Hell Yeah. If not, maybe me and Sam will do it. Maybe we'll draft in ourselves. We'll get Dan or someone or Dom, but we'll make sure we'll do our own fantasy draft in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, the draft is another change, so another wrinkle to the Renaissance era, which again will move things around, move people around. It'll be interesting to see. Will Cody end up back on Raw? And Damian Priest go on SmackDown, things like that. So it'd be interesting to see what they do and where they move certain titles and things like that. But yeah, what's your thoughts? Is there anyone that you're hoping they're going to move? What's the biggest thing that you think they could do?
Can I be honest about the draft? It never really means much. Like, yes, we have. True. Like, yes, we have people on one brand predominantly, and it's a great way of splitting the roster, you know, in that sense. But look at it as recently. We've seen every champion on every show. We've seen the Bloody Undertaker on NXT again. It's like it doesn't mean a huge amount, so I don't usually give it a massive amount of attention. It's fun enough, but give it 6 months, it'll all be forgotten about, and they'll need to do another one. So I don't really. For me, it's a bit of a gimmick. It's nice to see where it's more of a way of creating storylines, I think, than a legitimate draft. But I think it might mean something more this time if Triple H wants to kind of make it more solidified. But then again, the minute we have a pay-per-view, because the pay-per-views are always co-branded, then the minute that happens, it matters not. And when you've got one Uso twin on one brand and one Uso twin on the other brand, it's show A and show B. Not that, one's better than the other, but they're two sides of the same coin.
Well, I do wonder if that, case in point, the Usos, is this a way to get Jey Uso back into the sort of bloodline, and this is how we're going to see the tag team of the old bloodline versus the new bloodline, and do we see any kind of relationship, heal and form back together? Because obviously the big thing that we'll see tonight, I guess, is a carry on from last week where Tama Tonga, attacked with the help of Solo Sikoa. They attacked Jey Uso, which I thought Paul Heyman was absolutely fantastic. Just sold so well into being scared of Tama Tonga and who he is. So I think maybe that's one of the things for the draft. I think it's always a chance for them to move challenges around as well for titles. So if there's someone who they want to go for a US title rather than an intercontinental title, they can do that. If there's someone that they think would have a better back and forward with Cody for a few weeks or a few months, they can do that, or vice versa for Damian Priest. Or if they want to split a tag team up, this is the way to do it. So is this the way that we see Judgment Day go their separate ways? Little bits and pieces like that.
Sorry, mate, go on.
No, I was going to say, so that, worth keeping an eye on what happens in the draft. Again, just another way for this new Renaissance era to have its stamp put on the company moving forward. And whether it means anything, like Sam said this time will tell. I think they'll still have people moving around. It's also a great chance for them to introduce certain NXT people because they've got some, next week, I believe, is very interesting. They're doing spring break-in cut up in two. So they're doing 2 nights over the next couple of weeks on NXT. Now, the championship match between Dragunov and Trick Williams is on the first night, which is next Tuesday, so before the draft. And if Trick loses, he has to leave NXT. So I have a sneaky suspicion we're seeing one of Trick Williams or Dragunov get moved to Raw or SmackDown. That's just my opinion. We'll see. Sam, you were going to say?
I was going to say, did you see my reaction to the Solo Sikoa attack on the stream?
I have not.
It was, we're just chatting, and then, oh my God, what the hell is he doing? It was like, and I'm just going to make a promise now to the Gimme a Whole Year regulars who might go back and watch this, who know all about Diva Dom, because I'm banking on Dom not watching this all the way through. I think I said the boys are talking for an hour, but he might do, but I'm banking on him not. So if I'm going to do everything in my power to get Dom on the draft show. And I'm going to then do everything in my power to bring out Diva Dom, even if that means accidentally fluffing a couple of the draft things. So there is conspiracy afoot. Because I just think it'll be funny.
You could take Bo Dallas, which could be your first draft pick, and just make him like his head explode straight off the rip.
The thing is, though, I have to then be opposite him to do that, and there needs to be a fix in place for me to do that.
True.
But if we can put said fix in place and have me do that, that might make good viewing.
We'll see. Watch this space. If you want to see some fireworks, tune into whatever version of the fantasy draft that we do next week. That'll be next week's stream. So spoiler alert, if you want to tune in, that is going to happen next week. It might be a different day, depending on what schedules we have to work to with people, but we'll get there. I promise. We're going to wrap things up. Just as Marlin comes in and says hi, who looks like they're in Canada.
Great name.
Thanks for joining. I hope you go back and watch the rest of this because it's been a good chat. But let us know in the comments, what do you think about this new Renaissance era in WWE? You can see the continuation of this era tonight on SmackDown on Gimme a Whole Year and join Sam with his watch along. And you can obviously hear him talk rather than Corey Graves and Wade Barrett as well. But Marlin's still struggling with Roman Reigns.
They get paid more than me, but I was going to say Corey Graves gets paid a lot more than I do. That's for damn sure. But anyway,
yeah, that's true. But you get some entertainment with Sam, and you get to talk with other people. You don't just have to listen to two people talking the whole way through. So it's always a good chance to have a great chat about wrestling and everything that's kind of going on at the moment. So there's a big weekend. TNA's got a show on. If you want to know a little bit more about that, go check out WrestleSphere, and you can see that interview that Sam was talking about at the beginning with Ash by Excellence, formerly known as Dana Elegance. Sorry, I mean she could be excellent as well. Formerly known as formerly known as Dana Brooke, for anyone who isn't keeping up with TNA but knew her from her days in WWE. Lots of content on WrestleSphere, loads of content on Gimme a Hell Yeah. If you are an Uncle Howdy fan, the Howdy Hangout, I believe it's called, is up and running with Dom. He likes to put them out every few days, every time there's something cryptic going on. How will that fit into the new Renaissance era? That would be an interesting one to see, in this kind of world of realism that they're going for. How will he fit in? How will that whole potential Wyatt 5 or 6, whatever they're kind of going to go with here. So keep your eyes peeled. Dom's all over that front. If you're into your gaming, you've also got the stuff with Anthony, which is for 2K24, which is still going. And I can tell you, there's also some stuff coming because I think I'm recording with him this weekend. That'll be an interesting one. So tune in for that. That's coming up too. Lots of great content. As I say, can't leave out Dan over on Monday Night Raw. Watch along with him. But for now, we are going to wrap up. Sam, anything you'd like to say before we do go?
Yeah, one thing is that we need you representing WWE and representing AEW, and we need to have a fight, basically, is what I'm saying. We need to have that.
What, in real life? Or
No, not in real life. Jesus, I think he'd eat us all alive. I think he'd kill us all.
Yeah,
he'd just get naked and we're screwed. But no, I think on 2K, that's what you got to do. You get your troops, he gets his troops, and let's have let's do tribalism for one night only, with our resident WWE guy and our resident AEW guy.
We'll see, but I'd say the only way you can know if these videos are coming, because I'm not going to spoil it, there's something cool happening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for both Wrestling Royalty and Gimme a Hell Yeah. You'll be the first one to know when these videos come out. But thank you very much for joining us, as always, on this Friday. I hope you enjoy your weekend, enjoy the wrestling. Your weekend starts here. This has been a Friday night feature with Sam. I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty, and we will catch you next week.